In this video, I'm going to upgrade the RadRover battery from its original 14 amp hour to a 20 amp hour battery. And I'm going to show you how you wire it into your RadRover. A generic battery just comes with some pigtails and you have to figure out how to wire it. And I'm also going to show you how to take the RadRover battery, mount it onto your rack, and also wire that in and run two batteries at the same time. And that will give me 34 amp hours of power. So this is the battery cable that we have to splice into. But there's only about 1.5 inches of it showing right here. And we don't want to have a visible splice in our cable on our brand new bike here. It will look like crap. So I'm going to pull this whole assembly out. We're going to pull the cable all the way through the frame and remove this whole assembly as one unit. Then I'll show you what we're going to do. So this piece here is a skid plate. It does not come with the RadRover, but I recommend you put one of these on there. I have a whole video about skid plates, so look that up. It keeps the dirt and the moisture off these connectors in here. So we have to pull the cable that we want to pull through is this one right here. So it's tie wrapped. Let's cut the tie wrap. Carefully. And so now this is the cable that we want to disconnect right here. And this is the one we want to fish through. So to fish this cable through here, it's going to be easier if we remove this grommet. Just be careful and gently lift the grommet off. And there's a grommet on the other side that I need to remove as well. This is the cradle that I took off the bike. And I didn't want to cut it right here because I still have to reuse this when we mount the RadRover battery to the rack. So I bought this cable here. Bolton Bikes sells this cable here to replace this cable. So now once I run this through the frame of the bike, this will be sticking up where this used to go. And now this is where I'm going to plug my batteries into. $10 at Bolton Bikes. An absolute must. So Bolton Bikes is using this XT90 connector as their connector on most of their batteries that they sell. And I did some research, and this is a really good connector to use. It's a 90 amp connector. You can't plug it in wrong. It's fairly waterproof. These connectors overlap by that much when you plug them in, and they're hard to unplug. You don't have to worry about it coming unplugged as you ride. So I'm going to replace all my connectors with these XT90s, or what we're going to use. This is a battery off of my other bike. It uses some other weird connector. I'm going to get rid of that as well. And everything I'm going to use is going to be this XT90. So I'm feeding this connector back through the bike. The Bolton connector. Putting it back through the grommet here. and it is polarized. It only plugs in one way. I'm replacing the tie wrap. I got to get this grommet back in. Put back the skid plate. So now we have this connector coming up through the frame that the batteries can connect to. And the plan is, I'm going to cut this cable here and mount the opposite connector on here so I can plug this back and go back to the original configuration like this. I can put my triangle battery in here and I can plug it into here. And then also I'm going to mount this to the rack and run a cable down here where I can plug it into here as well. That's the plan. Okay. We need a female to plug into the battery here. One thing, make sure that this is turned off. I have it turned off, but I have a meter just in case. So that's on. I got 45 volts, and I can touch the connectors of 45 volts. It's not enough to shock me, so you don't have to worry about that. But what you have to worry about is if you short these two wires accidentally together, you'll blow up the battery. So that's why you want to make sure it's turned off. The positive is the square end on the cable. So I don't want to melt this connector. So I want to mount it to another connector to help absorb some of the heat, and also use these heat sinks on the end as well. So for my extension cable that I had to make, I use a 10 gauge wire. And this looks like this is 12 gauge wire that they're using on this battery. So that's pretty heavy wire as well. But this is the RadRover cable that went to the cradle. And look how skinny the wire is. But this cable was a lot shorter. So when you make a longer cable, you definitely want it to be heavier gauge. You won't lose as much power. So that's why I use such a heavy gauge on this extension cable. So how I plan to mount the RadRover battery to my rack is with this piece of wood. This is a toe peak rack, and I have a whole video on how you can mount whatever you want to this rack, because it has a track system here. So I've cut this piece of wood to fit this track, and I'm going to mount my cradle to this piece of wood, and then it's just going to slide on, and then I'm going to have a extension cable that runs down to this connector down here, and I'll be able to run this battery or my triangle battery just by switching the connector. And that's the plan. If you don't have a toe peak rack, I'm sure you'll be able to mount just a 1x4 or something to your rack that you have, and then you can mount your cradle to that. So I have the RadRover battery on the rack. I have the cable coming through here. I could just run the one battery on the back, just plug this in, and I'm good to go on that battery. But now I'm ready to install the triangle. And the triangle battery just barely fits in here. Perfectly nice and tight. No rattle or anything. It's the exact size for the bike. When I first started putting it in, I thought, uh-oh, it doesn't fit. But it fits fine. Then I have a little bit of room back in here where I'm going to cram all my cables in here. So let me put some Velcro on here. So this is what I have here. This is going to the battery in the back. This is the triangle battery. And then this is the connector going to the controller. So whichever one I plug in, I can use. And then all these cables easily tuck back up in here. I'll show you how I do that. You could wire these batteries in parallel and run them both at the exact same time. You'd have to make sure that they were equally charged before you hook them together. If one was charged and one wasn't charged, you'd have too much current running out of that battery trying to charge the other battery. These are not like lead acid batteries where you can just jump a dead battery with a good battery and charge it up. These have to be charged at a certain rate. If you notice that your chargers are usually rated 2 amp, 3 amp, or 4 amp, and you really don't want to go above 4 amps, you're charging your battery too fast. It's not healthy for the battery. So you don't want to hook these up in parallel if they were at different voltages. So you'd have to charge it take a meter, make sure that they were at the same potential, then hook them up in parallel, and you could run them that way. But if you were running along and all of a sudden you hit this switch and it turned it off, well, now you'd be running off of only one battery and you wouldn't have known it. And then you go, oh, I turned my switch off. And then you turn it on, and this battery's at a different potential than this battery. And you don't want to do that. So it's not worth all the hassle of running them parallel at the same time. I'm just going to run them one at a time. And when one runs down, then I plug in the other one. And the connector that I'm not using, I'm going to put a blank male in the female to keep it clean. So if I'm using the back battery, I'll put this blank plug on the front battery so that I won't get any dirt in here while I'm not using this connector, while it's just sitting back here. So this is what it looks like with the cables all tucked in. Nice and neat. And it's easy just to take these Velcro off and get to these cables, pull them out, change to the other connector with no problem. So I was going to go over the cost of the upgrade. Compared to the cost of buying a spare Rad Power Bikes battery of $549, and it does not come with the cradle, that's extra. This battery was $365 and it's 20 amp, not 14. And for another $20 or $25 you can go with the 52 volt version if you want to run a little bit higher voltage. I'll put a link in the description for Amazon for this, and as well for the connectors. I got a set of 5 connectors for $10 or $12. And the cable that you need to go through the bottom down here, the only place you can get that is from Bolton ebikes. Cannot get that from Amazon. So I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.